Hello everyone. Welcome today. Welcome for today's lecture. So today we are going to discuss the rest of the clauses that were pending in the last lecture, and we will start some portion of the company audit. Okay. Although while discussing this particular clause, also we will be taking some portion of the company audit, but we'll take after at the end of the lecture. So let us start. Okay. So till yesterday or till last lecture, basically, we discussed about clause 8, wherein CA in practice accept position of an auditor previously held by another auditor without communicating to him. So that was the last thing we discussed. Now we will be continuing from that. Okay. I hope everyone has read the rest of the clauses so that it will be easy when I will be explaining now. Okay. So now clause number 9. What clause number 9 says? Clause number 9 says that if a member in practice, okay, if a CA in practice, if he accept appointment, if he accepts the appointment as an auditor without as an auditor of a company without first ascertaining whether the compliance of section 13940 has been done with or not. So if we accept the audit accept the auditor, a position of an auditor or appointment of an auditor of the company without first ascertaining without first ascertaining from it that whether the requirements of section 139 and 140, section 139 and section 140 of Companies Act has been compliant with or not. Sorry. If not, then he cannot accept the appointment. If it has been compliant, then perfectly fine. Okay. Now, in this case, who are required, like which auditors are required to look for this particular requirement of compliance? So I'll give some example, you tell me. Okay. Mr. A was appointed first auditor by BOD of XYZ Private Limited, which was incorporated a month ago. Okay. Now this is one of the example. You tell me whether the auditor, Mr. A, is required to check for this compliance of 139 and 40. Whether Mr. A is required to check for the compliance of 139 and 40, he is first auditor of the company that has been incorporated a month ago. Should I check the compliance of 139 and 40 in the current case before I accept appointment of an auditor for a company that is XYZ Private Limited? Come on, guys. Okay, Shrishti, good. Come on, come on. So pretty easy, pretty easy. You just need to read the plain wordings of the clause that I have written. That's it. And you will get the answer. Good, Sayed. I want more participation today. Okay, so let's see the answer. Now, whether the first auditor is required to comply, see, 139 and 140 is applicable to the first auditor also, because 139 lays down the procedure of appointment of first auditor, and even 140 also provides, at the time of retiring, not appointing or not reappointing the retiring auditor or casual vacancies. So if it is a first auditor, then 139 will come into play, and yes, Mr. A is required to check compliance with, basically in the current section it will be more of 139 and less of 140, but still we will say with 139 and 140 of Companies Act. So Mr. A is required to check. Required reason, because 139 lays down how to appoint first auditor, and 140 is about not reappointing the previous retiring auditor, filling up casual vacancies or other provisions with respect to the subsequent auditors. But 139 is the primary section that will come into play in this role. And yes, he is required to check the verify. He is required to verify particularly, whether the compliance has been done or not. Now, another example. I'll continue this example. So now we decided Mr. A is required to check for the compliance. What he should do? He went to the management and asked, management, please provide me a certificate that you have obtained, you have complied with all the requirements of section 139 and 140. So Mr. A obtained management certificate that they have complied with section 139 and 140 of Companies Act while appointing him or any other, while appointing him. So he obtained management certificate that they have complied. Okay. Reason, because he obtained the management certificate that he was not able to verify. He is the first auditor, not even appointed. How he can verify whether the sections have been complied or not? So it was new for him. Like the company has just started. So he obtained a management certificate for that. So you tell me whether this particular thing, like he obtained the certificate, it was, not possible him to perform any other procedures. Is this sufficient? Is this sufficient? Is this audit procedure sufficient to comply with the particular requirements of this clause? See, it is not only important that we need to comply, it is also important how we need to comply. And we at times don't look into the how portion of each and every compliance. Good, Sayyid. Come on, guys, pretty easy. Come on, pretty easy. So it is the importance of the word ascertaining over here. When we talk about that, he needs to ascertain means he needs to make sure. Auditor needs to make sure. And obtain obtaining management certificate will not suffice. Reason because management certificate or management representation letter will not help you to ascertain. It's not a that much conclusive evidence that can be on the basis of which I can say that I have ascertained. So here the word is ascertain, like ascertaining that I have to do something. I just cannot rely upon the management, and hence because there is ascertaining, I need to obtain additional evidence and I need to ask the management whether you have complied with the provision or not. Now you will be wondering which provisions we are talking about. Correct? You will be wondering what is the 139 provision that we are talking about for appointment and what we need to see in the compliance. See, that's why I said so if you are doubt with 139, like what is contained in 139 and 140, then we can see in detail when we'll check for the company act. We'll start the company's audit, but just to give you a reason, just to give you a brief idea. Okay, so 139 talks about my appointment of the first auditor by board of directors within a prescribed period of time. If that appointment has not been done within the prescribed period of time, then I cannot, means that has been not, that particular clause has not been satisfied, or the compliance with 139 has not been done. In that case, it is mandatory for me. If that has not been complied, then I need to make sure that that I should not be accepting an appointment. For example, I think for the first time appointment after incorporation of the company, the board resolution for appointment of the auditor is required to pass within 30 days of the registration of company. If not done, means not complied. Then there are next provisions that are required to be complied with. Okay, if the board of directors are not able to appoint the auditor within 30 days. But we'll see all these things in next chapter, that is company audit in detail. However, just to point out that this is not sufficient. We need to make sure, okay, date of incorporation can easily be obtained. Board resolution can easily be obtained. Gap between both of them, 30 days, more than 30 days, complied, not complied, can easily be identified, even though it's a new auditor. Clear? Any doubt? Okay. Same is applicable for, okay, when auditor is appointed, in place of existing auditor. When auditor is appointed on the place of existing auditor, he needs to check for the compliance of 13940. Again, it will be applicable where joint auditors wait a minute. So I'll write it that not all joint auditors are reappointed. Let's say earlier three joint auditors were there. Now they are appointing only 2 joint auditors. So one joint auditor left out. So the rest of the 2 are required to check whether the compliance with 13940 has been done with or not. Okay. So it is applicable when not all joint auditors are reappointed. Or it is applicable when one or more auditors appointed by the company were not holding office earlier. So auditor appointed by company not holding office earlier. Okay. Now another example. Mr. A has been appointed as an stat auditor for XYZ Limited for FY 2021, let's say for example, okay, or 21, 22, 2021, whatever it is. Last year, Mr. Z. So Mr. A is of, let's say for example, ABZ and Company. He was from ABZ and Company Chartered Accountants. Last year, Mr. Z of ABZ and Company was statutory auditor, okay, for XYZ Limited. Now you tell me whether Mr. A, who is from the same firm of Mr. Z, is required to check for the compliance. Firm is same. So Mr. A is from ABZ and Company. Mr. Z was also from ABZ and Company. Just a partner is different. Am I required to check for the compliance? Am I required to check for the compliance? Pretty easy, guys. Trust me, pretty easy. Come on, guys, pretty easy. Am I required to comply? Good, Sayyid. Good, Srishti. Good, Hari. So, yes, I am required to comply. Reason because the wordings, just focus on the wordings of the clause. If CA in practice, if he accepts appointment as an auditor of the company without first understanding whether the requirement of 739 and 40 of the Companies Act has been complied with or not. Do we see any word of reappointment that he is only required to check when he was not last appointed? Or whether, only required to check when there is a change in auditor? No. Every time you need to check whether the requirements of 139 and 140 has been, complied with or not. Okay. So compliance will come into play. But when there is not a, change in the auditor, okay, so there will be a very limited compliance that we are required to check as per 139 and 140. Because 140 majorly deals with, reappointment, any other auditor except for the retiring auditor, filling up casual vacancies and all such scenarios. And 139 is with respect to the appointment of the first and subsequent auditors. So only a limited portion of compliance will be, required to be checked. But yes, this will be applicable. Okay. Now another question. Mr. A of ABZ and Company was appointed tax auditor of XYZ Limited for previous year 2021. Last year, tax auditor was Mr. K of KSH and Company. Now, whether he is required to check for the compliance of 139 and 140? Because last year the auditor was different. Last year the auditor was Mr. K, another company, KHS and company. This time the auditor is different. Mr. A from ABC and company of XYZ Limited. Whether we are required to check for the compliance. Whether we are required to check for the compliance, guys. Good, Shrishti. Come on, guys. Pretty much easy. Simple. Just read the plain words of the provision, the clause, the question, and its answer. That's it. Good, Rashmi. See, I want maximum participation from you guys. Reason because the more you will participate, the more you will understand what we are discussing here. Participation is must. Come on, guys. Pretty easy. Okay. So, if your answer is yes, then I'd like to point it out over here that we are talking of appointment of a tax auditor. Tax auditor appointment is not required to be done as per 13940. That is the statutory auditor appointment that we need to check for. So when I say appointment of an auditor, it's a stat auditor, not the tax auditor. Because when you are going to appoint the tax auditor, you need to see the compliance with the income tax act, and this provision or this particular clause talks only about 139, 140 of the Companies Act. This is not applicable for tax audit. This is tax audit. So, answer is simple. Tax auditor not required to check 139 and 140. Simple. So there is one question that only partnership and LLPs can be audited. So I'll suggest Sayyid that this particular question we discussed in detail. Just let me show you. Over here, yeah. That was in the first lecture where we discussed about section 25, companies not to engage in accounting. Like in that case, we understood that if any LLP has a company as a partnership, any LLP has a company as a partner, that LLP will also be counted as a company. And only LLP or partnership or individual sole proprietors can practice as a chartered accountant or can be appointed as a statutory auditor of the company. Companies cannot practice. Okay, companies are not required to engage. Companies cannot engage in accountancy or practice of a chartered accountant, and hence they are not allowed to be part of. They are not allowed to be an auditor, statutory auditor of a company. I hope it is clear. Okay. Any doubts till now? Pretty much clear with clause 9? Yes, no? Pretty much clear with clause 9? Okay. I'll move to the next clause then. Now this was clause 9 with respect to the compliance with the section 139 and 140 of the Companies Act. Okay, but the next clause that we are going to discuss is very important also. So the next clause says that if a chartered accountant in practice charges or offer to charges or accepts Okay. Professional fees based on contingent finding, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Remember in the start, I will go back to that particular. Yeah. Clause 10. Remember in start, we discussed if a chartered accountant in practice charges or offer to charges or accept audit fee based on percentage or upon contingent finding of an event, then he will be held guilty. However, we had some exceptions, liquidator, valuer, MCS, and all those things. Okay, now we'll see this in detail. If, or you can say, if chartered accountant in practice, okay, if chartered accountant in practice charges or offers or accepts, okay, fees in respect of any professional work, charges, offers, or accepts fees in respect of any professional work, okay, which are based on percentage of profits, which are based on percentage of profit, or based on contingent upon the findings, contingent upon the findings or results, okay, which are contingent upon the finding or results of such employment, okay, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Clear? Okay. Now, the important point over here is that there are exceptions to this. Now, there are exceptions to this, and that is covered under Regulation 192, okay, that is restriction on fees. Regulation 192 says that a chartered accountant should not accept unless the following conditions or the following cases are there. Okay. If the following cases are there, then it is fine. Which are the following cases? In case of liquidator, okay, based on, in case of liquidator, based on percentage of realization or disbursements of assets. Okay. In case of auditor of cooperative society, he can charge based on percentage of paid up capital, okay, or gross or net income of profits, or working capital, or gross or net income. In case of valuer, he can charge based on percentage of value of property valued. Percentage of value of property valued. Okay. Then it comes management consultancy based on nature of assignment and decided by council. Then comes fundraising. In that case, I can charge based on percentage of fund raised. Then comes debt recovery service. In that case, I can charge based on percentage of debt recovered. Okay. Then comes cost optimization. I can charge based on percentage of benefit derived. Okay. Benefit derived from the cost optimization activity. And then the last one is other service approved by council, decided by council. And that includes acting as an insolvency professional, and second, non-assurance service to non-audit clients. If these are the cases, then it is fine. Clear? So liquidator, auditor, cooperative society, valuer, management consultancy, fundraising, debt recovery, cost optimization, and other are decided by the council. In all these cases, if you charge percentage of of these amounts, then it is fine. For example, there is a debt recovery service. If we charge percentage of profit of the company, then not allowed. So he can charge percentage of debt recovered, but not any other parameter. Clear? Any doubt? Pretty easy, nothing difficult here. Any doubt? Okay. If no further doubts, let's take one question. Just a minute, let me pull up on the screen. Okay. This is related to the previous clause only. There was a question asked in December exam for 4 marks with respect to the previous clause, not this one. CA Mehta was appointed as an auditor of CS Limited for year 2021 in the place of retiring auditor CA Gupta. CA Mehta accepted the appointment after obtaining a certificate from the management that the provisions of 139 and 140 of the Act have been complied with. Comment with reference to the Chartered Accountant Act 1949 and schedules thereto. See, the point we just now discussed was asked in December exam. Plain simple point. Okay, see the answer. Clause 9 of Part 1 first schedule to the Chartered Accountants Act provides that member in practice shall be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he accepts an appointment, okay, as an auditor of the company without first ascertaining it from whether the requirements of 13940 has been complied with. Okay. Now, under this clause, it is obligatory on the incoming auditor to ascertain from the company that the appropriate procedures in the matter of its appointment has been duly complied with, so that no shareholder or returning auditor may at later date challenge the validity of such appointment. I'll focus it here. I'll not read the whole answer, but I'll highlight the important part. The word ascertain means to find out for certain. This word means that the incoming auditor should find out for certain as to whether the company has been complied with the provisions of 139 and 40. It would not be sufficient for the incoming auditor to accept a certificate from the management of the company that the provisions of the above section have been complied with. It is necessary for the incoming auditor to verify the relevant records of the company and ascertain whether the company has, in fact, complied with the provisions of the above section. If the company is not willing to allow incoming auditor to verify the relevant records in order to enable him to ascertain whether the provisions of the above sections have been complied with, the incoming auditor should not accept the audit assignment. Clear? And the comment, hence, Mr. C.A. Mehta is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct because he did not verify the appointment as the compliance of 139 and 140. Clear? See, the point we just discussed also was asked in December exam. No, Shishti, it's other way around. So, Soham, with respect to your question, it's non-assurance activity for non-audit clients. If your client is not an audit client and it's non-assurance activity, then it is fine. Yes. So there is one question. What is the difference between verifying and obtaining certificate? Obtaining certificate is a management representation letter sort of thing that we are not verifying, just asking a management to say, give us a management representation letter that, okay, this is the requirement that has been complied with. But verifying means to obtain the evidence, to obtain the record, and to verify by our own self that whether the provision has been complied with or not. So that's the difference between both of them. I hope it is clear. So both the clause clear, any doubt? Yeah. Okay. Then let us move to next clause. The next clause is pretty simple. Now I will bifurcate next clause, in two parts. One, I'll explain it. Clause 11. Okay. Clause 11 says that CA in practice not to engage in any business or occupation. Okay. Not to engage in any business or occupation other than the profession of profession of chartered accountant unless permitted by council. Okay, unless permitted by council. Now, it's very important to understand what is permitted and what is not. Okay. Now, let us see for what is permitted and what is not. A minute. So, there is an exception to this particular clause. Okay, which says that provided that nothing contained herein shall disentitle a chartered accountant from being a director of a company. Okay, means exception is CA can be a director of the company. Now the question will arise, if I be a director, then can I be a managing director or whole-time director? Answer is no. He can be a director, but not a managing director or whole-time director. Okay. Now there is another thing. Can he, be a director of a company where his partner or is interested in such company as an auditor? So, for example, he is a partner in a partnership firm. Okay. Now one of his partner is the auditor of XYZ Limited. Now he wants to be a director of XYZ Limited. Can he be director? Answer is plain and simply no, because it is a matter of interest. Okay. So it becomes an interested party. Hence, if it is an interested party, he cannot be a director. So, but not a MD or whole-time director or director of company where his partner is interested as an auditor of the company. If his partner is interested as an auditor of the company, then he cannot be a director. So he can be a director, not MD, not whole-time director, or not a director of a company where his partner is interested. That is an exception. Now, I'll focus on the word unless permitted by council in the clause. Unless permitted by council. Okay. Now, what council did is, there is an appendix 9 in CA regulations. Of CA regulations. Okay. This appendix 9 provides two categories. One, where permission is generally granted by the council, means that is allowed. And second is a special, where you need to take prior permission and prior, you need to request to the council prior engaging in that particular activity. Okay. We'll see both. So, permissions are generally allowed. Okay, that is general resolution sort of thing. We call it general resolution. Okay. Now, which are these items? If you engage in any of these business, then it is fine. Employment under CA, in practice, that is fine, allowed. Then private tutorship, that is also allowed. Authorship of books and articles, then holding LIC agency, then attending classes and appearing for examination, then holding public elective offices, like MLA, MP, or something like that. Okay, holding honorary offices like leadership of NGO or charitable institute, educational institute. Okay, then acting as a notary or justice of peace or special executive magistrate, acting as notary public, justice of peace, and special executive magistrate. Okay, part-time tutorship, under coaching organization of institute. Okay, valuation of papers, exam setter, head examiner, paper setter. These are allowed. Editorship of professional journal, then acting as a surveyor or loss assessor, okay, then acting as a recovery consultant in banking sector. So recovery consultant, and the last one is owning agriculture land and performing agriculture activities. Okay, so if you perform any of such activity, then it is fine, it is covered under the general resolution. Means no prior approval is required to be taken from council. Now specific resolution means prior approval is required. We can call it special resolution. Okay. I'll just reduce the size. Fine. Okay. Now, here in these cases, special resolution is required. Means prior approval is required. Okay. First one, full-time or part-time employment is business concern. Full-time or part-time employment in business concern. Okay. Provided relatives do not hold any substantial interest in such concerns. Provided relatives or himself, provided relatives or member does not hold substantial interest in that business, okay, or in such concern. That was the first one. Full-time or part-time employment in non-business concern. In non-business concern. Then office of MD or whole-time director. Again, provided there should not be a substantial interest. Provided no substantial interest. Okay. Then interest in educational institute. If you have an interest in educational institute, you need to take prior approval. Part-time, full-time lecturership. Part-time or full-time lectureship for courses other than those related to institute examination. Other than those related to institutes examination. Okay. So if I'm doing a part-time or full-time lecturership for the course which is not under the institute's syllabus or examination, maybe post qualification, post membership examination or something like that, then also then we are required to take prior approval from council. Then part-time, full-time tutorship under any educational institute other than the coaching organization of institute. So part-time or full-time tutorship other than the coaching organization of institute. Okay. If I am accepting part-time or full-time tutorship, then I need to take prior approval. Editorship of non-professional journals or other journals other than professional journals. Okay. Any other business or occupation. any other business or occupation, okay, then we are required to take the approval. Now, any other means it's an open-ended category. So if a business does not fall under the general or any of these specific one, then it will fall under this one. Okay. Very important point now we need to understand is what do we mean by substantial interest. So at one or two places we saw this particular word. Provided there should not be a substantial interest or should not hold. Just a minute. So does not hold a substantial interest. That is very important. Now we need to understand what is substantial interest. Substantial interest mean in case of a company, if it is shares, then with or without dividend or right to participate in profit, if I carry not less than 20% of the voting power at any time. For company, 20% of voting power, 20% or more of voting power. Okay, then I will be substantially interested. Now, it may be jointly with relatives, okay, or with any concern in which any of the person like my relative or he is has already a substantial interest. For other cases, if it is not a company, for other cases, if I have a 20%, okay, shares in profit or 20% of the profit of such concern, I can take it. I'm entitled to. So 20% or more entitlement in profits of such concern, then I'm substantially interested. So remember, the key is 20% or more with relatives. So if I am, substantially interested for 20% or more, then I need to, like I cannot go further. Although it's a special one, I cannot go further. Clear? Any doubt? Any doubt till now? One more thing, when I talk about part-time or full-time coaching, okay, part-time or full-time tutorship, or it is, for private tutorship, wherever the tutorship it is coming, wherever the word tutorship is coming, like, over here, private tutorship, if I just highlight it, private tutorship, sorry, or part-time or full-time tutorship over here. In all such cases, this should not be, the tutorship should not exceed, it should not be more than 25 hours a week. Should not be more than 25 hours a week. Clear? It should be less than 25 hours. Rather, it should be less than 25 hours a week. So any tutorship, anywhere I'm mentioning tutorship or something like that, it should be less than 25 hours a week. I hope I'm clear. Another thing is, there are certain positions, promoter, or signing, whether I can be a promoter of a company, whether I can sign memorandums or article of association of the company, it is allowed. So signing a memorandum and article, it is fine. Again, can I be interested in HUF? Can I do business in HUF? See, now you can get the membership of a HUF through being part of a family, and through inheritance or to devolving upon you. That is fine, but it is necessary for you to show that you are not actively engaged in that particular business of HUF. Okay, and you need to furnish a declaration for that. So for if you have a interest in HUF, if you are a karta of HUF, because of some XYZ reason, now you are the senior most male member in the HUF and you have become the karta, you need to depict that you are not actively engaged in the business carried by the HUF. And you need to submit a declaration, then it is fine. Okay. Any doubts till now? So, very good question. Can CA charge on the basis of refund bought or tax saved if it is non-assurance to non-audit clients? See, tax saved means you're talking about tax planning. Tax evasion is illegal. You cannot do that, first of all. So we should not be, focusing on tax saving and or tax any such thing. If it is a tax planning, then it is within the limits. It's there. Okay, that is fine. That is appropriate. But again, can a chartered accountant in practice charge on the basis of refund brought or tax, for tax advisory services? Now, you need to understand if it is a non-assurance client, non-assurance service with a non-audit client, fine, you can do that. See, and now there is one good question. Can a CA in practice be employee of a company which does not have a substantial interest? So I just provided here that requires special resolution for full-time or part-time employment in business concern, provided we don't have a substantial interest in that. But for that, you need to get prior approval of the council. So if you have the prior approval of the council, I think then it's fine. Then there is no issue. Clear? Okay. Let's move to the next clause for today. So the next clause is clause 12. Clause 12 talks about if CA in practice allows a person not being a member, not being a member, okay, of the institute or a member not being his partner. To sign on his behalf. Okay, to sign on his behalf or on behalf of his firm Okay. Any balance sheet, profit and loss report or financial statement. Any balance sheet, P&L report or financial statement, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Now, I will highlight a few points over here. First, whom I'm allowing? A person not being a member, or a member but not being his partner. Simple. So if I allow a person not being a member or a member not being his partner, now for what thing I'm allowing over here is to sign on behalf of me or my firm. And what he is signing? Balance sheet, P&L report or financial statement. Then I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. First, I'm allowing a person who is not a member, or he is a member but not my partner, to sign on my behalf or my firm's behalf the P&L, balance sheet, report or financial statement. Then I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Now, the word financial statement covers a very wide range of financial statement, like financial statement, notes to financial account, financial statement, cash flow statement, all these things, which are required to be given under the statutory act. Okay, if he signs any of such thing, report includes certificate, financial statement, both. So if he signs any such thing, then I will be held guilty. Now, what there are certain things which are allowed. You can say exception. So what is allowed basically? One, issuing audit queries. Just give me a minute. So what is allowed? I'll just copy it here quickly so that we can discuss. So these things are allowed. Issuing audit query, that are allowed. Asking for information, that is allowed. Letter forwarding, draft observation, financial statement, allowed. Initiating and stamping over vouchers, fine. Acknowledging and carrying on routine corresponding with clients, fine. Issue of memorandum of cash verification, fine. Issue acknowledging for records produced, fine. Raising of bills, issuing acknowledgements for money received, fine. Attending routine matters in tax jurisdictions, fine. So this can be signed by person not being member, or person being member but not his partner. Clear? So these exceptions are allowed. There is one more area. Means if you see, the whole area is like with respect to the incidental matters, with respect to the office administrations, all such routine works are allowed because they do not fall under the category of balance sheet, P&L report or financial statement. Rather than exceptions, I'll write to the clarification because these clarify what is there. Okay. Clear? Any doubt? Pretty simple, straightforward. Now, very good question I have received with respect to the earlier clause. Now, if CA in practice takes a special approval from council and he engages in full-time employment in business concern, then what he will be called? CA in practice or CA in service? So he will be called both. So provisions of CA in practice and CA in service will both be applicable to him. Okay. Now, this was part one, which was professional misconduct relating to in relation to member of the institute in CA in practice. Now, there is a part two. Part two is professional misconduct in relation to members of institute, okay, in service. That's the part two that we are going to discuss now. Okay. Now, part two, again, like part one has certain clauses, 12 clauses that we discussed. Part two also has certain clauses. Clause one, pretty simple, applicable for member in service. Okay. If a member in service pays member in service, if member in service pays or allows or agrees to pay, okay, directly or indirectly, directly or indirectly to any person, any share in the emoluments, like salary. Okay. The word that is used in the particular what do you say clause is emoluments, that is the salary or benefits that you receive of the employment. Okay, then you will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Same, this is pretty much same like we had for clause 2 in part 1. Pretty much same, nothing different, only applicable to member in service. All the things are same. Now clause 2. Clause 2, if member in service accepts, agrees, okay, agrees to accept any part of fees or profits, okay, from a lawyer, a chartered accountant, or broker engaged by such company. Okay. or firm or person or agent or customer or of such company. Okay, or you can say engaged by such company, firm, person, agent, or customer of such company. Okay, by way of commission or gratification. By way of commission or gratification, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. I hope it is clear. So, if a member in service accepts or agrees to accept, okay, if a member in service accepts or agrees to accept any part of fees or profit, okay, from a lawyer, CA, broker engaged by such company, firm, or person, or agent, or customer of such company by way of commission or gratification, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Pretty simple. So the important point here is if he accepts or agrees to accept any part of fees or profit from a lawyer, CA, or broker who has been engaged by company or by any of the person related to the company, okay, by way of a commission or gratification, then he will be held guilty. So if that person is, paying his part of the fees, his part of the profit to me as a commission or gratification, problem. Okay. So that was pretty simple. Part two, which is related to the professional misconduct in relation of member in service. Any doubt? Pretty simple, nothing difficult in this. Part three. Now, these are the very simple ones. What part three says? Part three, professional misconduct in relation to member of institute generally means irrespective whether he is in service, whether he is in practice, whether he is, doing any kind of activity. If he's a member, this is applicable. Professional misconduct in relation to member of institute generally means it is applicable to member of institute generally irrespective of whether he is in practice or he is in what do you say uh, service, or if he is only member then it is fine. Now this will be applicable if he is a member but not in practice or not in service. Still this will be applicable because this is general one. Clause 1, not being a fellow of the institute, acts and represents himself as a fellow of institute. So member in general not being a fellow represents himself as a fellow member. So he was not a fellow member, but he was acting or representing himself as a fellow member, held guilty of professional misconduct. Clause 2. If member in general does not supply information called or does not comply with requirement asked, okay, by council, by institute, council, then committee directors, director discipline, okay, then disciplinary committee, then quality review board, appellant authority, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Means does not supply information or does not comply requirement asked by institute, council, committee, director discipline, disciplinary committee, quality review board, appellant authority, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Clear? So there is clause 3 also in this. On the same lines, we have already seen the clause 3. So member in general, while inviting professional work, okay, from another charter accountant, or while responding to tenders or inquiries, okay, or while advertising, through write-up or anything, okay, through means specified under clause 6 and clause 7 of part 1 of this schedule, okay, while doing all these things or any of such things, okay, while inviting professional work or while responding or while advertising, he provides or gives information knowing it to be false. Okay, so key point. First, while inviting professional work, while responding to tenders, or while advertising, if he provides, okay, or gives information which is false, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Now, this is applicable to member in general. Remember, this is applicable to member in general. It is not saying that the member in practice, if he does so, then he is guilty of professional misconduct. But member in general, even though he is not in practice, if he responds to the tenders and provides false information, if he invites professional work and provides false information, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Now, the last part of this particular schedule, part 4, which talks about other misconduct in relation to members of institute generally. Okay, till now we were referring to the professional misconduct. For the first time now we will be looking to the misconduct other than the professional misconduct, that is other misconduct. Okay, now if a chartered accountant does not comply with any of the clause, which I'm going to write it down, okay, or clause of the part 4, he will be held guilty of other misconduct, not professional misconduct. Simple. Clause 1, member in general. Okay, if a member in general is held guilty by any civil or criminal code, okay, for an offense which is punishable with imprisonment, okay, for a term not exceeding 6 months. So if a member in general, okay, is held guilty by any civil or criminal code for an offense where he was imprisoned or he was awarded imprisonment for term not exceeding 6 months, then he will be held guilty of other misconduct. Held guilty of other misconduct. Clause 2, member in general. If member in general, in the opinion of counsel, brings disrepute to the profession or institute as a result of his action, whether or not related to his professional work, then he will be held guilty of other misconduct. So if he brings disrepute to the institute, okay, or to the profession of chartered accountant, whether or not related to the actions of his professional work, then he will be held guilty of other misconduct. These two clauses for other misconduct. Any doubt till now? Any doubt? Okay. If no doubts, what I can suggest is let's take a quick 10-minute break and we'll gather back in 10 minutes. Okay, let's take a quick 10-minute break. Hello team, hello everyone, welcome back. So till now we saw, part 1, 2, 3, 4 in detail, wherein part 4 was with respect to, other misconduct. Now our focus will be on the subsequent schedule. Okay, the second schedule. Now till the time we were seeing the first schedule. Now we will be seeing the second schedule. Okay, second schedule, just to provide a brief that is again covered with the three parts: part 1, part 2, part 3. Part 1 and part 2 being the professional misconduct, part 3 being other misconduct. Okay, let me start the second schedule. Now, when I talk about second schedule, a member will be held guilty of any professional misconduct if he identified to be not complying with or falling under any of the clause. Then the matter will be placed in front of the disciplinary committee. Now that's the difference where it comes. For second schedule, all the matters of second schedule will be placed, okay, matters under this schedule will be placed before the disciplinary committee. Okay, earlier it was in case of the first schedule, if you see the matters that were there for the first schedule, okay, the matters that were any of the part, whether the part 1, part 2, part 3, or part 4, even the other misconduct, if that is the case in first schedule, that all the matters will be placed before the board of discipline. In this case, all the matters of the second schedule will be placed before the disciplinary committee. Here, that's the difference. And when I talk about disciplinary committee, then the procedures and the penalty punishments and everything will differ accordingly. Okay. Now, for second schedule, let us see the part 1. Earlier, part 1 was with related to charter accountant in practice. So again, same way, professional misconduct in relation to charter accountant in practice. Okay, so any of the misconduct is identified, this will be related, or any of the following clause, these will be related to chartered accountant in practice, the same way we saw the earlier part 1 of first schedule. First, clause 1. Clause 1 says that if member in practice or CA in practice, if he discloses information acquired in the course of business or its professional engagement, okay, acquired in the course of professional engagement to any person other than his client, or without without the consent of his client. Okay, or otherwise required by law, or otherwise required by law, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Means if he discloses information acquired in the professional engagement to any person other than his client, okay, without consenting his client, or otherwise then required by law, then in that case he will be held guilty. So I'm disclosing information where I'm not disclosing to the client, or I'm disclosing without the consent of my client, or I'm disclosing where it was not required by law, then I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Okay. Now, this is the case where I also create like breach of confidentiality. So this is breach of confidentiality, wherein I do not keep the information confidential. Okay. Now, there are cases where it is required by law to give us the information. So in that case, that will be an exception to this. So if I'm required by law to provide the information, then I need to provide the information, and that will not be counted as a breach of confidentiality or any misconduct under this particular clause. Okay. So where it is required by law, I need to disclose it. If I don't disclose, then I am at fault. But if it is not required by law, then I'm not required to disclose. For example, there is section 143(12) of the Companies Act. Okay. If the auditor of a company in the course of performance of his duties has a reason to believe that there is a fraud involved in the activities of the company or has been committed against the company by the officers or employees of the company, in that case, he shall immediately report the matter to the central government within 60 days of his knowledge. Now, in such a case, let's say, for example, I came to know about a fraud. It's a confidential information. It may be related to some internal procedures, policies, and working of the company. Now, as per law, I am required to report to the central government. That is required by law. And if I do that, then it is not a breach of confidentiality and violation of this particular clause. Okay. So it will be only violation when I am not required to or not supposed to provide and still I provide. Another is there is a difference between sharing of work papers and sharing of information. In case of branch auditors, basically, sharing of information is different than sharing of work papers. Okay. Now for branch auditor, the principal auditor may require some information, and the branch auditors are required to submit the report and the information that is required by the principal auditor. But that is information, not the work paper. If I need information, I can ask branch auditor to provide me additional information, but I cannot ask branch auditor to provide me all of the work papers. Okay. So in case of branch auditor, sharing of information is different than the sharing of work papers, and the principal auditor requires the information, not the work papers. So auditor is not required to provide the client or other auditors, okay, maybe of the same enterprise or parent company or related enterprise or subsidiary, access to his audit work papers. Is not required to provide. We are required to share information, not the work papers. Any doubt? Any doubt, guys, on this particular? Pretty easy, nothing difficult, straightforward clause. Okay. If no further doubts, let me move forward. Clause 2 of part 1 of second schedule. Okay. Now, if CA in practice, okay, certifies or submits in his name or in his firm's name, okay, a report, examination of financial statement, unless the examination of such statement okay or and the records that are there has been made by him or his partner or an employee, okay, of his firm or by another or by another CA in practice. To simplify, if he certifies or submits a report, okay, without examination, unless the report has been examined by him or the examination has been made by him, okay. So if he certified something where he has not verified, then in that case he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Simple. Certifies or submit any report unless he himself has examined or by his partner or employee or by any other CA in practice, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Okay. When I say other CA in practice, it is a classic case of joint auditor that we will see in SA 299. Okay. So in joint auditor or joint audit of financial statement, there is a provision that we certify on the whole financial statement, but the responsibilities are divided. So we'll see that in detail when we discuss SA 299. But as of now, we'll park it here that okay, in case it is verified by other CA in practice, that is fine. Clear? Any doubt till now? Any doubt? Okay. If no further doubts, then clause 3, pretty simple. These are, as of now, these are pretty simple ones. I will be covering the questions once I cover the clause at the end. Okay. Clause 3, if CA in practice permits his name or his firm name to be used, permits his name or his firm name to be used. Now, to be used with or in connection to an estimate. Okay. If my name or my firm name has been used in connection with an estimate, okay, of earnings that are contingent upon future transactions or in manner, they are contingent upon something that lead or, that may lead to believe that he has vouched particular accuracy of that forecast. To simplify, simple. If I permit my name to be used, okay, with an estimate, okay, with an estimate that I have vouched the accuracy of estimate. Simple terms, if I simplify that, if I certify accuracy of estimate, okay, if I certify the accuracy of estimate of earnings, then I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Simple. Simple terms. Certify accuracy of estimates of earning. Okay. Or I have vouched. The another term can be vouched. If I vouch the accuracy of estimates of earning, if I say somewhere, or if I make other person believe that I have done this, then I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Reason because this is an estimate. How can you verify the accuracy of an estimate? Today I can say that there will be, let's say for example, next year my company will earn 10,000 crore of rupees of profit. It may happen that only 100 crore has been earned. My forecast was wrong. How can you make sure that there is an accuracy in a forecast? It's a forecast. It's an estimate. An estimate and accuracy cannot be the same. Otherwise, it could be an estimate, accurate number. Either it's an accurate number or either it's an estimate number. I cannot say the estimate has an accuracy. So that is incorrect. And if anyone does this, he will be held guilty. There is a guidance note. Okay. There is a specific guidance note. Guidance note on reports in company prospectus. Okay, that is of I think 2019. It was revised in 2019. Okay, now this guidance note was issued by council. Okay, this guidance note provides the guidelines with respect to the compliance of SEBI LODR and Companies Act relating to reports required to be issued by CA in prospectus. Okay, reports required to be issued by CA in prospectus. Now, in the prospectus, you may make any estimate forecast or you verify those estimates, but there are detailed guidelines given for that. Okay, so so for these particular scenarios, there is a detailed guidance note. given that in case of company prospectus, where there has been forecast, how we can, comply, how we can comply, and what procedures we need to perform and what activities we need to perform, that is given in detail guidance note. Pretty much simple, nothing difficult here. Any doubt? Okay. I'll suggest on the simultaneously also keep taking notes so that you will at later point in time it will be very beneficial for you to revise all these things. If you have taken notes in your own form or own writing, so it will be very easy for you to understand at the last minute when you will revise everything. Okay. Clause 4. If I express any opinion, let's say for example, CA in practice, if he express any opinion on financial statement of any business, okay, or enterprise, in which he is or his firm or his partner okay has a substantial interest. Now the word substantial interest is very important over here. Reason, because when I say substantial interest, that means substantial interest as per clause 11 of part 1 of first schedule that we discussed. We discussed it will have the same meaning. What was that? Substantial interest over here, that in case of a company 20% or more voting rights, in case of other companies it will be 20% or more entitlement to the profit, along with relatives and along with if along with my relatives or any concern where I already hold a substantial interest. So that is the definition of substantial interest. The same will be applicable to here also. Now when I say express any opinion on financial statement, which will include both certificates and report. So this particular financial statement will include both. Reports plus certificate. Okay. So this financial statement will include both. Pretty much simple clause. There is nothing complex in this. Any doubt? Okay. Now see why this is seen is because of the self-interest threat or familiarity threat, or the detailed other threat that we discussed. Okay, to mitigate those threats, this is a particular safeguard that has been kept in place. Now, when I say reports and certificate, does it include tax audit, GST audit, concurrent audits, other sort of attestation functions? Answer is pretty simple, yes. So this includes all attestation, okay, all attestation functions. Wherein I express an opinion. So if I'm expressing an opinion, then I will be held guilty. And in attest functions, I express an opinion. Okay, so this includes all attest functions by a CA. Sorry. Okay. Along with this, we will be seeing, requirements of the company set. So in company set, there's a specific section. Okay, section 141, like where member is prohibited from auditing the accounts of a company in which he or is an officer or employee of the company, or he's in the employment of an officer of an employee of the company, or he's like irrespective of the substantial interest. So that will also come in play, that whether I will be allowed to perform the audit or not. So along with this, whenever we are checking the requirement, we are not only required to check with the substantial interest. See, the compliance with the section is different. This clause is different. But in real life, when we check for the audit, when we go, whether we can, be an auditor of a company, we not only check compliance with the clauses, we check compliance with the provisions of the company set. So, compliance with the provisions of section 141 of Companies Act. Okay. In case of company, appointment as an auditor. I'll highlight this whole scenario, this one, okay, just to make sure this is not part of this particular clause, but this is additional, that we are required to check compliance. Additional, okay, this is additional, that we need to check compliance with 144 also when we are accepting an appointment. That will be covered as a part of company audit. Okay, just to give you a brief or summary that this is there. Okay. In the same way, like there are certain cases or scenarios where it has been specifically mentioned by the council that what we can do, what we cannot do, what is allowed, what is not allowed. So, can we write books of accounts for audit clients? Answer is we are not permitted. So, I'll write it here. See, not permitted to write books of accounts for audit clients. Okay, this is not permitted to write books of accounts for audit clients. Okay. Second, can I be a statutory auditor, internal auditor simultaneously? No. So, cannot be stat auditor and internal auditor together. Can I be an internal auditor and tax auditor simultaneously? Answer is again no. I cannot be a tax auditor and internal auditor simultaneously. Now you will ask whether this is part of this particular clause or am I checking? See, these are certain cases where you might not be, substantially interested. Still, you are not allowed to express any opinion. So I am covering all this because here in all these cases, you cannot be an auditor. You cannot express an opinion on a financial statement, although you are not substantially interested. So the clause ended over here. This particular line. Okay. Now this is an additional requirement where you cannot, issue your what do you say, opinion. Okay. Again, some will ask, can I be a GST auditor and internal auditor? No, cannot be GST auditor and internal auditor together. So in all these cases, you cannot be, all these auditors together. There is a cooling period requirement. There are other requirements that you are required to satisfy. So all these things will come into play. And when you will be a tax auditor, you need to check compliance with Section 288 of Income Tax Act. So for tax auditor, Section 288 of Income Tax Act is required to be compliant. See, why? Reason because when I say, the particular clause, it only talks about substantial interest, that you cannot express an opinion when there is a substantial interest, but there are other requirements for other category of audits. I'm just highlighting those requirements over here. In these cases, although you might not be substantially interested, but still you might, there can be a case where you are not eligible to be an auditor, eligible to be an appointment as an auditor because of Section 288, 141 or any other area. Clear? Any doubt? Okay. Now, what I will do is, I will cover clause 5, 6, 7, and 8 together. These are the clauses which are liability of, what do you say? Liability of auditor clause, you can say. Sorry. I need a wider page for this. Yeah. Okay. So I will be covering clause 5, 6, 7, and 8 together because they are linked. Clause 5. Okay. So what clause 5 says that this all is applicable to member in practice. I'm not going to write that again, but this is member in practice. If a charter accountant in practice or a member in practice fails to disclose a material fact, fails to disclose a material fact, okay, which was necessary for the purpose of expressing an opinion. If a chartered accountant in practice fails to disclose the material fact known to him, which is not disclosed in a financial statement, but disclosure was necessary in making such financial statement, okay, in his professional capacity, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Means fail to disclose a material fact where it was necessary in making financial statement, making such financial statement, okay, where he is concerned with the financial statement in his professional capacity. Means that, okay, I am a chartered accountant in practice, I am not related to this financial statement of XYZ Limited. For example, I am doing the audit of ABC Limited. Somehow I came to know information which is material, which is not there in the financial statement of XYZ Limited. Am I concerned here? No reason, because I am not concerned with that financial statement in my professional capacity. So where I am concerned with such financial statement in my professional capacity, then I'm required to do this. So if I fail to disclose a material fact where it was necessary in making of such financial statement, and where I was concerned with such financial statement in my professional capacity, then I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. That was clause 5. Clause 6. Okay. Clause 6. If I fail to report, if a chartered accountant in practice fails to report, okay, material misstatement, a material misstatement known to me, or in, it was appearing in my financial statement, known to him, okay, or appearing in financial statement, okay, with, like, where he was concerned in professional capacity. Same like this. So if I fail to report a material misstatement known to me, okay, to appear in financial statement with which I am concerned in my professional capacity, then I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Till now, two things. One, first, I failed to disclose material fact. Second, I failed to report material misstatement. Okay. Now, 7. Clause 7 talks about if I, chartered accountant in practice, does not exercise okay, due diligence or is grossly negligent, okay, if he does not exercise due diligence or is grossly negligent in conduct of his professional duties, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Okay, if I am a grossly negligent or I do not exercise due diligence, then I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Okay. Now, clause number 9. Oh, sorry, clause number 8. If a chartered accountant practice fails to obtain sufficient information, okay, which is necessary to express an opinion, which is necessary, okay, to express or for expression of opinion, or it's or I take exceptions, or over here its exceptions are sufficient or sufficiently material, okay, or the expressions or the exceptions taken are sufficiently material, okay, to negate the expression of opinion I have given. To negate means to disregard, or if I like I have given the expression, or I have given the opinion, but I have taken such exceptions that my opinion which is I have given is of no value because of my exceptions, okay, so are sufficiently material to negate the expression, okay, of an opinion that I have given, or the chartered accountant practice has given. So two things in clause 8: fails to obtain sufficient information, or take exceptions which are sufficiently material to negate the expression. If I perform any of such thing, I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Okay. If I perform any of such thing, then I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Clear? Any doubt with respect to this? These all clauses 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they are pretty much defining the liability of an auditor in case with respect to his professional duties. Like, okay, if I missed out this particular professional duty, I will be held guilty. So these all define the professional duties with respect to, let's say, financial statement or my audit, or or any of the professional duty or assignment that is there. Pretty much clear with these? Okay. Let me take one example for this particular clause. Okay, pretty much good example. Just a minute. Okay, here it is. Mr. A, statutory auditor of XYZ Limited, a manufacturing company where the trade payables, trade receivables, cash, fixed asset comprises 95% of the total assets, issued the following audit report. Now, this is the extract of an audit report. Report on the audit of standalone financial statement opinion. Okay. We have audited the accompanying standalone financial statement of XYZ Limited the company, which comprises the balance sheet as at 31st March 2020, the statement of profit and loss account, statement of changes in equity for the year ended, and a summary of significant accounting policies, other explanatory information, hereinafter referred to the standalone. So, introduction, fine. In our opinion, and to best of the information and according to the explanation given to us, subject to the matters and comments enumerated in the basis of qualified opinion paragraph below, the aforesaid standalone financial statement give the information required by the Companies Act and so in manner give a true and fair view. So it's a qualified opinion. Now on what basis they are qualified? Our opinion stand modified on the below matters. We have not verified the cash balance as on 31st March 2020, refer note 22 financial statement, due to high number of locations on which the cash was stored and maintained. However, management has provided appropriate representation on the same. Number two, we were not able to verify the balance of trade receivable, refer note 24 of the financial statement, and trade payable, refer to note 12 of financial statement, as no reply or confirmations were rolled out were received. So they rolled out the confirmation, but they did not receive any response. However, management has provided appropriate representations on the same. We would like to bring to your attention to the fixed asset mentioned in note 16 of financial statement regarding physical verification of fixed asset. As these fixed assets are situated at far location, it was not feasible for us to perform the physical count. Management had performed their routine physical verification and we have relied on the same. Comment in the light of code of conduct. Now you tell me under which clause, okay, this will fall if there is an issue. Whether this will fall or not, if yes, under which clause? So under which clause this will fall? Pretty easy. Pretty easy. Good, Soham. Come on, guys. Pretty easy. Like we just now discussed these clauses. Where this will fall? Okay. So let me show you. Now here, see, like what is the scenario is fixed assets, trade receivable, cash comprises 95% of total assets. Trade payable, trade receivable, cash and fixed asset comprises 95% of the total asset. And I have modified my opinion, okay, on cash balance, trade receivables, trade payables, fixed asset. Means I have modified, or you can say I have not verified 95% of my total assets. Do you think I have done any audit then? If I say I have not verified 95% of my total assets, then I have not performed the audit of the asset side in a balance sheet. I have not gained any comfort. Means I have taken exceptions that are sufficiently material to negate the expression of an opinion. So my exceptions over here, these exceptions are sufficiently material to negate the expression of opinion. Okay. Now you tell me that, okay, okay, now you tell me, if I have not verified 95% of my assets, then how can I say that these financial statements give the information required by the Companies Act? So required gave a true and fair view. I have not verified any asset. How can I say it gives a true and fair view? Means this expression of opinion is negative or has no value because of my exceptions, and that's the particular clause it talks about. When a chartered accountant practice is exceptionally has taken exceptions or sufficient material to negate the expression of opinion, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Also, if he grossly negligent of his duties, then also he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. So here, I am grossly negligent or I do not exercise due diligence. I am, taking such exceptions which are of, material in nature to negate the expression of opinion. Hence, I am guilty of professional misconduct. Either disclaim or, yeah, very good option. So what is the, very good question. So what is the correct option in this case? If we cannot issue a modified opinion, what we should do if this is a scenario? Either issue a disclaimer of opinion, disclaim the opinion. You are not able to verify, you should not be providing any opinion. Disclaim of opinion means I'm not giving any opinion. I'm not expressing any opinion. Okay. So if I'm not expressing any opinion, there is no point to negate the opinion. Number two, either issue adverse opinion, reason because you are not able to verify. So those will be the two appropriate options in the current case. Clear? In the same line, there is one more clause that deals with this kind of scenario. That is next clause, clause number 9. What clause number 9 says? Clause number 9 says, if I fail to invite attention, okay, to any material departure, from generally accepted auditing procedures, okay. I'll write it this way. Then I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. If I fail to invite attention of any material departure from generally accepted procedures of audit, then I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Okay. Same way, if I'm not able to perform any audit procedure which was necessary in the circumstance, and if I do not draw attention, then I will be held guilty. So let's say, for example, in this scenario, if I do not draw attention to these procedures that were required to be performed, but I was not able to perform. If I do not draw an attention, I was also held guilty of professional misconduct under clause 9. Okay. So in these cases, I am, I need to make sure that, okay, if I'm certifying something, if I'm issuing an opinion, okay, I need to make sure that, okay, I do not fail to disclose a material fact. I do not fail to report a material misstatement. I should exercise due diligence or should not be a grossly negligent. I should obtain sufficient information which is necessary to express my opinion, or I should not take any exception which is sufficiently material to negate my expression. Or if I should not fail to invite attention to any material departure. Okay. Any material departure from generally accepted audit procedures. In all these cases, I will be held guilty of professional misconduct if I fall in these cases. This is a classic. I say it, clauses with respect to the liability of auditor. In all cases, it's the liabilities of auditor to perform all these tasks. Okay. This was 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. The last clause that is there for this particular part is clause 10. Again, this is with respect to the liability side only, like, where I fail to perform a particular task, I like. So the clause 10 says that, okay, the clause 10 says that if a chartered accountant in practice fails to keep money of his client, okay, other than remuneration, okay, and fees, other than remuneration or fees, in separate bank account, or to use such money, like if I fail to keep the money of his client, other than remuneration and fees, okay, or money which is meant to be expended, in a separate bank account, or if I use such money, for purpose for which if I fail to use such money for the purpose for which they were intended, within a reasonable time frame, for which they were within a reasonable time frame. Okay, then I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. So if I fail to keep money, I'll remove it. I'll keep it separate over here. If he fails to keep the money of his client other than remuneration and fees in separate bank account, or fails to use such money for the purpose for which they are intended to be used within the given reasonable time frame, then I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Okay, either I failed to keep money in separate bank account, or I failed to use for the purpose, okay, within reasonable time frame, then I will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Clear? Pretty simple. Now the question may arise, what is the reasonable time frame? Okay, reasonable time frame depends upon case to case basis. Let's say, for example, you are given the money to pay, the payment of, let's say, for example, GST like in GST tax and like output tax. So something like that, you are given an amount. Now, if you do not pay within the due date or by the due date, that's a reasonable time frame till the time of due date. So that depends upon case to case what will be the reasonable time frame for that particular transaction. Okay. Now, this does not contain remuneration fees or advance receipt for a remuneration or fees. Okay. If I have received remuneration fees or advance of fees or remuneration, that will not be covered. That's an exception. Clear? Any doubt till now? Okay, so there is one question. So in my earlier example, MCQ one, here it was like the question was the audit should the auditor be performing any other audit procedures rather than disqualifying or but rather than issuing adverse opinion or disclaimer of opinion. See, if other procedures are available, you are required to perform those other procedures. So the goal is to obtain audit evidence, sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. If you are not able to obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence, even after performing the required audit procedures, in that case, you can issue an adverse or disclaimer of opinion. So it's totally depend upon the audit evidence you have gathered by performing the audit procedure. Any doubts? Any doubts? Okay. Now there is one good question. Okay. The question is that whether the advance received for out of pocket expense is required to be kept in other bank account. Now see, out of pocket expense that you are going to incur, that is part of your billing, part of your fees. Okay, that is for you, and hence it will be counted as a remuneration or fees, because when you raise a bill, you mention that okay, this is the remuneration, fees, out of pocket expense, and this is the amount that you require. But this clause talks about keeping the money of his client. The amount that is paid for out of pocket expense is your money. Okay, not the money of the client that you are required to pay for the client or on behalf of client. Hence, it is part of your remuneration. So you need to understand for which thing you have received the money, whether the money is of the client or the money is for you. Like for example, your fees, your remuneration, your expenses. What is the money for? So that will be the distinguishing factor over here. So this whole till now was my part one. I'll quickly cover part two. So part two and part three, not that much, heavy one. I'll suggest they are pretty simple. I'll quickly cover it. So part two talks about professional misconduct Okay. In relation to members of institute generally. Remember part 2 in first schedule was with respect to member in service. But here it is member in general directly. So there is no service. Part 2 is like, there is no part for the service, member in service. So part 2, clause 1, pretty easy. Part 2, clause 1 says that if you contravene, if a member in general, contravenes any provision, okay, of this act, charter accountant tax or regulation, okay, made thereunder or any guidelines like council general guidelines issued by council, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Simple. If he contravenes any of the provision of this act, regulation, guidelines issued by council, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Now, there are various guidelines which are issued by, you can say, by council in this scenario. Okay. With respect to the engagement of article assistant, with respect to the engagement of, what do you say, registration of article assistant, premium from, from article assistant, stipend to article assistant. There are various guidelines issued by council. So these guidelines, we are required to comply with these guidelines. And if any of the member in general do not comply with these guidelines, in that case, he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Okay. So regulation 43, regulation 46, 47, regulation 48, stipend to, article assistant, then uh, regulation 56, termination or assignment of articles, then regulation 65, article assistant not to engage in any other occupation, regulation 67, complaint against employer, regulation 68 to 80, again audit assistant, regulation 190, register of office, 190 CA not to engage any business, 191, 192, part-time employment restriction on fees. These all are regulations which are prescribed under, prescribed by under CA regulations. So if you do not comply with any such regulations, you will be held guilty of professional misconduct. This is in just a list. There are other regulations also, but just a list and to give you an overall flavor that which regulations are included over here. Okay. Clause 2 for this particular part. Clause 2 is like being an employee of a company, if it's CA in general or member in general, okay. If a member in general being employed of a company or firm or person, okay. If a member being an employee of a company or firm or person discloses confidential information, okay, acquired in course of employment, acquired in course of employment, except Now, this is something called an exception to this, except when required by law or or permitted by employer, okay, then in that case it is fine. So it's the same breach of confidentiality that we discussed for member in practice. Same breach of confidentiality we discussed for member in practice. So for member in practice, we remember we discussed in clause 1, CA in practice. This is the same applicable over here. Same, there is no difference. So unless it is required by law or permitted by employer, if you disclose any of the confidential information, you will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Clause 3, if a member in general okay, if a member in general includes any information, statement, written, form, okay, includes any information in statement, written, form, okay, to be or any information to be submitted to institute, okay, or council or committee, or you can say director discipline, or disciplinary board of disciplinary committee, so board of discipline or disciplinary committee, or quality review board or appellant authority, okay, if member in general includes any information in statement, written, or to be submitted to institute or its authorities, any particular, okay, or its authorities, okay, any particulars knowing them to be false. I'll rephrase it here. Okay. So if a member in general includes any information or any particulars knowing it to be false, okay, to institute or in any written or any form which is required to be submitted to the institute or its authorities, council, committee, director, quality review board, then he will be held guilty of professional misconduct. Okay. Now, if I do this knowingly to be them, that I know this information is false, okay, means I provide wrong information to the institute. Means I provide information knowing to them to be false to institute. Then I will be held guilty under clause 3. Clause 4, pretty easy, nothing difficult. If a member in general if I defalcates or embezzle money If I defalcates or embezzle money, okay, in my professional capacity, then I will be held guilty. When I say defalcates or embezzle money means I take away. I take away the money. I do not, fraudulently I take away the money. I will be held guilty of my professional misconduct. This was for professional misconduct till now for the part 2. Okay. Clause 1, clause 2, clause 3, clause 4. 4 clauses in part 2, 10 clauses in part 1 that we discussed. Now the last part, that is part 3. It has only one clause. Part 3 talks about other misconduct. Again, remember over there was part 4 in first schedule. Here it is second part 3, other misconduct in relation to members of institute generally. Okay. Now this has only one clause, basically, which says that a member in general or member of institute if a member of institute, whether in practice or not, shall be deemed to be guilty of other misconduct if he is guilty by any civil or criminal code for an offense, okay, which is punishable with imprisonment for a term exceeding 6 months. Okay, so if I'm held guilty by any civil or criminal code, okay, with a punishable with imprisonment for a term exceeding 6 months, I will be held guilty in part 3 of second schedule. Okay, otherwise there was same schedule, there was same clause. Yeah, there was same clause in my schedule 1 also. Just to show you, over here. So part 4, other misconduct, where I was held guilty for a term not exceeding 6 months. If it is not exceeding 6 months, that will be my first schedule. If it is exceeding 6 months, then it will be second schedule. Okay, so that is a difference. It's all same. The rest is same. That is part 4 over there, part 3 over here. Okay, so this is the particular schedule, okay, that we discussed and are applicable. Like these are the in the professional ethics or code of ethics. If I am held guilty for particular this 3 part or part 4 of our schedule, I will be held guilty of other misconduct. Otherwise, I will be held guilty of professional misconduct for rest of the clauses. So yes, so there was a question that recent guideline issued for social media by ICI asked, will be asked in exam. See, if the guidelines are issued before 31st October, yes, they will be part of your syllabus. still, the like Board of Studies will come out with supplementary like amendment list. Okay, which are the amendments that will be part, till 31st October, that are, before 31st October, they are there and they will be covered. So I'll suggest, whatever amendment is there till 31st October, that will be part of that. And I think we covered also in last to last lecture, we covered these guidelines for social media, like videos and posting on social media with clause 6 and clause 7. Any doubt? See, guys, today, because of the constraint of time, I was not able to start company audit chapter. What I will request is, in the next lecture, I will start the company audit chapter. Plus, I'll take a few more MCQs of this particular topic, 1 or 2 MCQs in the start of the lecture itself. So I'll suggest you guys to read the company audit, section 139 to relevant 148 section, and all the relevant rules which are there. So I will be covering those particular provisions in next lecture. Any doubt till now? Any doubt? Please provide the feedback. That is very important for us, because with your feedback, I will be and the team will be able to understand what additionally you require and what we can improve for you. So please use your app or portal to provide your feedback. It is very, very important. Okay, guys. So if no further doubts, I'll propose to conclude the session today here, and we'll meet you in next session. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time. Take care.